Have you ever wondered what might lurk beneath the waves, or even what bizarre relics the water might hide that could leave you questioning reality? From parasitic sea lampreys clinging to their prey with circular jaws of razor-sharp teeth, to fishermen accidentally reeling in centuries-old elk antlers, and even a potential bomb, the world's waters harbor a treasure trove of unsettling surprises. Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Frima. Meet one of the ocean's most inscrutable creatures, Frima. This barbaric little parasite has earned its place in deep-sea horror stories for the way it creates a mobile nursery for its young. How, you ask? By hijacking an unfortunate salp, turning it into a hollow barrel, and crawling inside to navigate the ocean, food and water at the ready. Often linked to the chest-bursting xenomorph from the Alien franchise, this open ocean parasite carves out the insides of jelly-like salps, transforming its victim into a barrel-shaped pram. Hunkering down in this hollowed-out home, they then drift through the water, protected from predators, and conveniently stocked with a roomy nursery for its offspring. Scientists have debated whether the salp remains truly alive during its forced retirement as a floating hostel, but one thing is certain: the host's insides are pretty much stripped away. Male Frima even tote around their own barrels, possibly to attract mates. Whatever the reason, it is a chilling reminder that life in the deep can be far stranger and more horrifying than anything we dream up for the big screen. Next, we are talking about the alien eel. Nobody goes fishing expecting to face a mouthful of nightmares, but that's what happened to one angler in New York's Hudson Valley. He yanked an eel-like beast out of the water only to discover a round, suction cup mouth filled with concentric rows of razor-sharp teeth. That aquatic horror show turned out to be a sea lamprey, a parasitic creature that latches onto other fish, punctures their skin, and drains their fluids. The fisherman's reaction was simple and blunt: weirdest thing I've ever caught. After seeing the unsettling photos, the internet couldn't agree more, with plenty of people likening it to an alien from a sci-fi movie. It is just safe to say that this is one species no one wants to tangle with again. Next, we are talking about the long-nosed creature. Deep in the cold waters off of Newfoundland in Canada, a fisherman hauled up something that looked more like a mutant cartoon character than a fish. With a floppy, rubbery snout and what seemed like wings on its sides, the catch was almost too bizarre to believe. The baffled crew initially guessed it might be a platypus, until marine biologists identified it as a long-nosed chimera. These cartilaginous cousins of sharks and rays are rarely seen because they lurk in deep, dark waters up to 3,000 meters down. They even come equipped with a venomous spine, which means anyone who accidentally reels one in should handle it with extreme caution. For this fisherman, it was enough weirdness to last a lifetime.
The Michigan Dogman is a creature that's been part of local legend since 1887, when it was first reported in Wexford County, Michigan, described as this 7-foot creature standing on its hind legs, but with the torso of a man and the head of a dog. It's also said to have glowing blue or amber eyes and lets out this terrifying howl. It sounds like an eerily distorted human scream. While it wasn't widely known until later, the Dogman is said to have been haunting areas around the Manistee River long before the first reports came out. The first big encounter, though, was in 1887, when 2 lumberjacks claimed to have spotted a creature with the body of a man and the head of a dog. And over the years, there have been other sightings, including one in 1937 in Paris, Michigan, where a man was attacked by wild dogs, one of which was walking on 2 legs. There were more reports in the 50s and 60s, and in the early 90s, a man simply known as Ben to the press reported seeing the Dogman multiple times in Ottawa County. One time he saw it standing behind a car in his parents' driveway. Another witness, in 1994, hit a very large animal with his car, thinking it was a bear, but found gray fur left behind in the grill. The Honey Island Swamp Monster, also called the Cajun Sasquatch, is a creature said to live in the Honey Island Swamp in Louisiana. Descriptions of it are pretty similar to Bigfoot, a large, hairy, bipedal creature, about, again, 7 feet tall. I don't know what it is with all these 7 feet tall monsters. This one, though, with gray hair and glowing yellow or red eyes, and a horrible smell. People who've claimed to see it say it looks like an ape-human hybrid, and the creature is even sometimes called the Louisiana Wookiee, or just the thing. Some people have reported finding unusual footprints, with only 4 toes instead of the usual 5, which is pretty strange for a primate. The first reported sighting happened in 1963. Harlan Ford, a retired air traffic controller turned wildlife photographer, had taken footage of this strange creature with a Super 8 camera. The footage was only found after his death, in 1980 though, when a reel of film showing the creature was found among his belongings. But even back in 1974, Ford and his friend Billy Mills said they had found strange footprints and the body of a wild boar with its throat slashed in the swamp. Today, people still believe the creature roams the swamp. Some people believe the creature, or creatures, maybe escaped circus chimpanzees from a train crash that happened in the early 20th century, and then the story goes they might have just ran out into the woods and eventually adapted to their new environment. A pudgy body with ear-like fins that flop around in slow motion makes the Dumbo Octopus a cross between a cartoon character and a visitor from a distant star system. Floating through the crushing depths with gentle flaps of its ears, this little weirdo doesn't bother hunting big flashy prey. It quietly scoops up morsels, drifting by as if savoring a quiet life at the edge of Earth's final frontier. Its gelatinous skin, soft curves, and calm demeanor feel too serene for such a harsh environment. Spotting one can feel like a blessing, a graceful reminder that even in the darkest corners of our planet's peaceful alien elegance can glide by without a care. A body so transparent you can see straight through to its insides sounds like a prank of nature. But glass squids take this quirk to the extreme. Hanging out in the Pacific's dim twilight zones, many species are almost entirely see-through, making them nearly invisible to predators and prey alike. Some light up with gentle glows, turning them into drifting lanterns, and a watery world that barely knows what sunlight is. Nothing screams otherworldly like an animal engineered by evolution to all but vanish into its surroundings. Whether shimmering faintly or gliding in ghostly silence, these squid operate on a level of natural stealth that would impress the most cunning extraterrestrial spy.
In our number 2 spot today, we have HatZop, the giant pterosaur of Transylvania. Soaring over the ancient landscapes of what is now Romania, HatZop wasn't your average pterosaur. It was a flying behemoth that redefined what it meant to be terrifying. With an estimated wingspan of 36 feet or 11 meters, comparable to a small aircraft, this colossal creature dominated the late Cretaceous skies. Unlike its slender-necked relatives, HatZop had a robust skull and a thick neck like Mike Tyson, suggesting it didn't just snack on fish or small animals. This airborne predator likely hunted larger prey, possibly even targeting small dinosaurs unfortunate enough to catch its eye. Its fossils were discovered in Transylvania, a region already steeped in legends of eerie beings. Back then, the area was an island teeming with unique and isolated species, making it a perfect hunting ground for a predator of such magnitude. Just imagine a predator that combines the wingspan of a fighter jet with the predatory instincts of a hawk. If HatZop were still around today, our skies would be a lot more frightening, and airplane pilots might have some formidable traffic to contend with. It's enough to make you thankful that this Transylvanian terror is confined to fossil records, leaving us to only wonder what it would have been like to witness such a majestic yet terrifying creature in flight. And finally, in our number 1 spot today, we have Camarasaurus, the massive shelled cephalopod. Dwelling in the depths of the ancient Ordovician seas, Camarasaurus were a colossal shelled cephalopod that would make even the bravest sailor think twice about setting sail. With a towering shell that could reach up to 30 feet or 9 meters in length, this behemoth was essentially just a gigantic armored cone with tentacles. It was the undisputed ruler of the seas, an ambush predator that turned the ocean floor into its personal hunting ground. These guys would lie in wait, its massive shell blending in with the seabed, while its tentacles extended outward, ready to snare anything that ventured too close. These tentacles weren't just for show, they were powerful appendages capable of seizing and subduing prey with terrifying efficiency. Once caught, the unlucky victim would be drawn into a sharp beak-like mouth that could crush shells and bones without mercy. The sheer size and predatory prowess of this ancient cephalopod would make even the largest of today's marine animals seem insignificant. It's creatures like these guys that make us grateful some monsters remain trapped in the pages of history. The next time you gaze out over the seemingly peaceful ocean, remember that it once hid giants that would make you reconsider that beach vacation.
Imagine going out for a nice paddle only to be toyed with by the greatest apex predator in the ocean. People used to be afraid of the ocean. They used to make big strong boats to sail along the coast. Now people take flimsy foam boards and light carbon fiber paddles out into the sea. And this is what you get: being followed, watched, and pushed around by a massively intelligent and dangerous orca. To be fair, no human orca fatalities have ever been recorded in the wild. Not to say that they've never happened, but no one has ever heard of it happening. Captivity is a different story, of course, but those whales are stuck into tiny pens and essentially driven insane by boredom and movement restrictions. Orcas in the wild will travel hundreds of kilometers a day in search of prey, or sometimes just for fun. They also have a complex mode of communication with significant degrees of difference between different populations, which scientists have categorized as both including languages and dialects, with some pods speaking differently but being able to understand one another, and other pods having no interactions at all. This whale likely went off to its pod to eagerly talk about this strange human it saw standing on the ocean. Next are ceiling snakes. I think a massive 20-foot python living in my ceiling has just become the worst nightmare fuel of my life. These tenants had been hearing slithering, scraping sounds above them for a little while, but didn't truly understand the significance of what they heard. They figured maybe a snake had gotten stuck or was hiding. Not a huge deal, just call in the professionals to wrangle it out and all will be well. But the professionals are obviously not prepared for this behemoth either, or at least I hope they weren't. Otherwise, that means their plan really was to just tug this massive snake by its tail until the whole ceiling collapsed. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they didn't know how massive this snake was, and they didn't intend on destroying these people's entire ceiling. With that in mind, this is just an insane video, and a story no one would believe if they hadn't caught it on camera. Could you imagine telling your friend, yeah, a 20-foot python fell through my ceiling yesterday, how are you doing? Would they believe you?
Dinosaurs are extinct, right? I mean, of course they are. Well, you wouldn't think so if you saw a Chinese giant salamander. They really do look like creatures that would have been roaming the earth during the time of the dinosaurs, and they actually did. The Chinese giant salamander has been around since the Jurassic period, about 170 million years ago. There are two main types of giant salamanders, one native to Japan and the other native to China. The Chinese giant salamanders are slightly larger. In fact, they're the world's largest amphibians living in freshwater habitats. It can reach almost 6 feet in length, weighing a little over 100 pounds. Now, seeing a salamander that big and hefty would be alarming enough as it is, but there's another freaky thing about these creatures, and that's the sounds that they're known to make. Their vocalizations have been described in a few different ways. Sometimes it sounds like a bark or a hissing sound, but most eerily is the high-pitched crying noise they're said to make, almost like a human child. Gotta say though, I kind of find these things cute in their own odd way. Just look at this absolute beast of a fish. Has this image been photoshopped? Well, actually, no. This is a real giant catfish, the Mekong giant catfish, one of the largest species of freshwater fish in the entire world. These things can grow as big as a small car, easily hitting lengths of 9.8 feet and weighing up to 770 pounds. Not only that, but they've also been known to live for a pretty long time. Some have been around for decades, up to 60 years. That's a pretty good lifespan for a fish. In terms of appearance, they're not really all that flashy. They look kind of weird. They have this distinctive silver color that makes them stand out. Their mouths are broad and equipped for bottom feeding. They're built for efficiency rather than looks, obviously. One of the largest freshwater fish ever caught was an 8'10" female Mekong in Thailand, weighing 646 pounds in 2004. 1985. The giant golden-crowned flying fox is a species of megabat native to the Philippines. It's one of the largest bat species in the world. Its wingspan can reach up to 5.5 feet, so this thing could easily wrap its wings around a fully grown person, and picturing that kind of makes me shudder. Now, luckily, these are one of those bat species that do have those cute dog-like faces. If these things looked more like a vampire bat, I'd just never go to this part of the world. Watching these things fly through the air though, they almost look like gargoyles or some kind of prehistoric beast. They have some pretty gnarly claws too, but luckily they don't eat meat. The last thing you'd need is one of these things swooping down from the air, trying to take a bite out of your head or flying off with your dog. One of the wildest tales in naval history is the encounter the USS Stein had back in 1978. The ship was cruising in an undisclosed location when suddenly its sonar equipment went down. The crew was startled by the noise feedback, but no one could see what was going on. When they returned to dry dock to figure out what had happened, they found that the sonar dome, located right at the bow of the ship, had been shredded. We're talking about large gashes, some 4 feet long, or about 1.2 meters, that covered about 8% of the dome's surface, and if that wasn't crazy enough, they found these massive teeth or claws embedded in the slash marks. Navy Marine biologist Forrest G. Wood took a look at the evidence and concluded that these were arm hooks from a squid. But here's the thing, the claws were way bigger than any squid parts anyone had ever seen before. C. Scott Johnson, a Navy biophysicist, went a step further and suggested that they were likely dealing with a quote extremely large species still unknown to science. So what was it? A giant squid? Some other monstrous deep sea creature? What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. The HMS Daedalus has a fascinating story, especially when it comes to the legendary sea serpent sighting back in 1848. Launched as a warship in 1826, it was during one of its voyages to St. Helena that something absolutely wild happened. On August 6th of 1848, Captain McQuay and his crew spotted an enormous creature while navigating between the Cape of Good Hope and St. Helena. They described it as a giant serpent with about 4 feet of its head visible above the water. The captain estimated the entire length to be around 60 feet and said it was dark brown in color with a yellowish white throat. The creature was swimming fast, between 19 and 24 kilometers per hour, and the captain claimed that the creature, quote, passed rapidly, but so close under our lee quarter that, had it been a man of my acquaintance, I should have easily have recognized his features with the naked eye. He wasn't the only one who saw it either. 7 crew members reported seeing the creature for about 20 minutes. One officer also said that it looked more like a lizard than a serpent.
Deep beneath the waves of the Sea of Japan, a peculiar sight unfolded. Imagine, if you will, a minuscule shrimp adorned with crimson spots gracefully navigating the seafloor's rocky expanse. Its delicate, almost see-through body and spindly antennae gave it an air of mystique. Now what's fascinating is that this shrimp, dubbed A. exilis being Latin for slender, hence the terrible opening joke, is no ordinary find. It's an entirely new species, a remarkable addition to the ocean's inventory of life.
Later to be featured in the Hellraiser film series. So I love Hellraiser, one of my favorite horror movies. The second one is pretty good too. I remember when I first saw it when I was young, I was very terrified of these things. Now, hearing the name Hellraiser, it's easy to think that these are just demons, but it's more complicated than that. The quote-unquote hell in Hellraiser isn't really hell as we know it. It's more like this Lovecraftian realm where souls are dragged after engaging with the puzzle box, aka the lament configuration, which calls forth the Cenobites, mysterious entities who were once human themselves, but whose twisted carnal desires led them down a dark path to be transformed into grotesque, mutilated creatures. What makes the Cenobites so disturbing is not only that they have a desire to tear your soul apart, but they really enjoy it in the sickest way possible. And they quite like experiencing the same level of suffering themselves, constantly towing the line between pleasure and pain. Just really creepy. Now we head back to, surprise, surprise, Japan, which has got to be one of the most haunted countries on the planet. At number 5, we have Akanto, also known as the Red Cape. This spooky spirit takes the form of a man wearing a mask and usually hangs out in women's restrooms. So and it gets even scarier. Akanto often lurks in the last stall of the bathroom. And when you sit down, he pops a question. Red paper or blue paper. Now, your choice will determine whether you make it out of this situation alive or in a body bag. If you pick red paper, things turn pretty gruesome. Picking red means you'll be drenched in red. The red stuff from inside of your body. Red Cape's method of making this happen varies from telling to telling, but suffice to say, you don't want to pick red. And don't go for blue either, because that'll lead to suffocation by the demon. Now, you might think you can outsmart him by choosing a different color, but no, that just gets you sucked into the toilet and sent straight to the underworld. So, what do? Well, if you're lucky, you may be able to run away. That's about all you got.